Yo, welcome to Voices for KERN. It's your host, Victor Lara, and we got here our Time for Change crew ready to get another episode started. So, we have some new people. Would like to introduce them. Your name, how old you are, and how long you've been here.
My name is Christopher Dixon. I'm 15 years old. I've been here for about 5.5 months now, and I am a youth volunteer at Time for Change.
Oh, I'm Gennessa Fisher. I am 21 and I've been here probably like 6 months.
All right. What about? Let's talk about Joe.
Returning legend. No, I'm just playing. I'm just happy to be here. Jovan Dangerfield, Executive Director of Time for Change and media personality for 139 and a couple podcasts and a little of this, a little of that. And for the sake of this episode, a former addiction specialist. Okay, just to give you a little hint of what it's going to be about. Former addiction specialist. Okay, anyway.
All right. So today we're going to be talking about a little something. It's a big topic that's going on, especially now in our society, and it's about substance abuse and mental health issues. We've seen a growth in this, and I feel that a lot of more people are starting to get, they're starting to be more cautious of it. They're starting to see that there's they're starting to accept it. So why do you think young teens fall into substance abuse? Why is it that, we turn to that? Is it because of family issues? What do you guys think it is?
Anybody want to say?
Yeah, anybody. You guys could just take a swing at it,
I feel like it depends. I feel like there's not a cookie cutter solution or answer to that question. I feel like there's a lot of different ways that you could go about it and talk about it. There's people who have been like, oh yeah, my friend did it, so I wanted to try it too, or it was peer pressured. As a product of an addict, I am a product of two addicts. I wanted nothing to do with drugs. I did dabble a little bit in college, but after that I knew I was like, this is not something I want for myself after seeing like what the result was from my parents. So I feel like there's no cookie cutter answer to what that question was.
So do you feel that being, like yourself, like you said, you were a product of addicts. Do you feel that motivated you and said, I don't want to do this? Or do you think that was more like do you think you were more, you would have had a higher possibility or a higher risk of you using drugs? Do you think that, seeing them was like, oh, I don't want to do this. I see how it is. Or do you think it was like, oh, they're doing it, maybe I should too?
Well, one, it's kind of difficult. My dad is like a recovering addict, and my mom, she's still in active addiction. So like with my dad, he was really strict about like no drugs, no, which make me want to go like, I want to go try it now that you said no.
Yeah.
You said no, so now I'm going to go do it. And that's the reason why I dabbled in it a little bit in college. But seeing my mom on the other side is just like, oh, I really don't want to be like that. Mm-hmm. So I guess it's kind of a little bit of both because I still dabbled, but I knew that that's not something I wanted for myself.
Wow. How old are you?
I'm 21.
So when I was 21, I was doing quite a few drugs. And that probably sounds like a little bombshell. Yo, this guy. Right. But I believe in what? Transparency. I believe that taking yourself off these platforms and trying to act like you're all important is whack and played out. I think it's about paying it forward and sharing with people what you've been through. And for me, I would just try all types of drugs when I was about 20, 21. It was a way of coping for me. I would get down with anything. I'm talking about anything. Zoloft, Trazodone, Vicodin, Percocet. Sorry, Mom. Lean. Yay.
That was a big one.
Yay. I mean, I've done a lot, dude. A lot. And I was hurting so bad at this time, I didn't even really care, bro, about what would happen to me. Like, I didn't care about my future. I didn't care about anything when I was doing that stuff. I was so much hurt by, like, my family dynamic and my mom. Like I said, my mom's kind of, like, abusive and stuff like that. And the way I decided to cope with that was by trying to escape. And so for me, the use of drugs at that time was an escape. And that was what it was for me.
Do you feel that that's a big factor now? Especially like for I myself, I used it for the same reason, But I mean, I wasn't 20. I was a little teenager, you know, doing lean, popping pills, doing weed.
Right.
And do you feel that's a big reason why, like trying to like cope with it because you don't know how to cope with certain situations in life?
In my family, we weren't talking about coping. We weren't talking about how to deal with life's pressures. We weren't talking about where to go. It was either taking out your pressure on a woman, taking out your pressure on some drink, some pills, some trees, some lean, some something, or fighting somebody or going off on somebody. And it was really those three things on repeat for a lot of years. Then I started learning about different things and getting healthier, understanding that that's not the way to do it. But at that time, I think a lot of the youth that are using right now, I think they're trying to escape.
Yeah.
I think they are. And then when I say something like this, everywhere I go, people are like, don't say that, don't say that. And that's another big part of the reason why we're not doing nothing about it. Because even when I go to schools or colleges or anywhere and I'm speaking, and I just, you know me, you guys know me, I'm gonna say whatever it really is. They're just like, did he just say that? It's like, yeah, dude, this is what it's gonna take for us to talk about it, you know, so.
So what do you think, Chris? What do you think about this issue?
Really growing up, I was actually grew up in a Christian household. So obviously we always were taught to, as young children too, like, don't do this, don't do that, don't be a follower and stuff. So I always kept that as something important in my life. And since I hit junior high, it was a little like, you heard like a few kids talking about like, oh, she did this, she did drugs and stuff. It wasn't really big, but when I entered high school, which was last year, my freshman year, it was like I was exposed in this environment where it's like, wow, I never been in this environment because both family on my sides I never grew up in that sort of environment. And so, you know, being exposed like this and having, you know, parents tell me like, no, this isn't right, don't do this is not the way. Then, you know, temptation comes, and then some kids, you know, they tempt you to do this with them. And obviously, you know, sometimes you don't want to back down. But me, I can be honest, I have had those feelings where I was like, you know, I'll just try it once. But then I seen myself like, where would I be in 5 years, you know, if I do this, you know, and will I get off of this? So I had to think twice about it. And so that kind of got me away from that. I still get tempted from people till this day, and you know, I just think about it as like, this is not my future. I never grew up like this, and I don't want to disappoint myself or my family. So this is like, yeah.
So, you know, I love how you talked about the environment. So do you guys feel that the environment in which youth grow up in, or like substance abuse users, has to do a lot with them using? Or do you guys feel that, you know, because a lot of times I've heard, you know, they say it's like cocaine, like, oh, that's a drug for the rich, you know, you got to be rich to do that. So do you guys feel that environment has to do a lot with it?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense of like, if put in the right environment, it's liable to happen. You're obviously at risk, but there's also that there's a lot of youth that I've seen that I work in the schools, and it's like, I didn't start until I was in a predicament to start. Like, I was homeless because my parents kicked me out. Like, they already had a rough situation and it turned worse. And then that's when they used it to cope with different things, and because they thought they were alone. But even though they're parents, it's kind of like, once again, it's not a cookie cutter answer for that. It depends on the environment that you put youth in.
What do you think?
Okay, so now I'll get out of the first person narrative you know, all things wild man, and go into the addiction specialist hat, right? We talk about 3 things: biological, psychological, and social, right? So the biological factors are like, if somebody was my dad and he used, I may be more predisposed to using, right? Yeah. And the psychological factors are, were you beat as a kid? Were you molested? Were you know, did anybody speak to your identity? Did they affirm you? You're gonna cope. It's just about how. Some people don't get into the drug coping, but they get into the, I'm gonna I'm sorry, when you go above and beyond and try to do
Overachieve.
overachieving mindset. And that's their drug. So each new accolade and each new thing is their drug. So that's the psychological factors. Sometimes it can be drugs, sometimes it can be something else. And then you have the social factors. Who do you kick it with? If you kick it with 9 people that use, you could say, I just kick it around them, I don't use, but eventually, if you continue to kick it with them, you're going to use or you're going to get away from them. Eventually, because it just gets worse and worse. Like, they started out rolling little joints, and then by the time I'm in 12th grade, they're doing meth. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're full on doing meth, taking lines, and I'm just like, yo, you guys are wild, you know? But if you kick it with them, you'll try it. So I think breaking down those 3 and understanding those 3 really does help. And once again, stigmatization of drug and drug abuse too at the same time. If somebody thinks, you know, this group I kick it with isn't gonna accept me, then I'm gonna go kick it with a group that is gonna accept me because of what I'm doing. And it's easy to find other kids that are doing fentanyl, stuff like that right now.
Why do you think we still have that big stigmatized mindset on substance abuse? If, you know, there's more campaigning and like more, it's not, one thing I've seen is substance abuse isn't a choice. It's like an illness, you know. Why do you guys think we're still stigmatizing it and saying, well, what he's doing is bad?
I'm half ex-professional, but then I'm also a member of the community, and I come from an urban community. So it's like, I hear words like crackhead, pillhead, this and that. Don't nobody want to be associated with that. Mm-hmm. You know, everybody has this one uncle that is in black circles, you know, oh, he's a crackhead. You know, he may not even be doing crack. He might just be doing like some pills or something, but they'll just call him. Any drugs you do, yeah. Like, even my cousin used to smoke weed, my mom called him a crackhead. Like, you smoking dope, you know? And it's like, he ain't about to tell you no more, you know? So I think in urban communities, I think we still have a way of putting down the person that uses.
I think with humans in general, it's judgment. We have this predisposition about what drugs are, and they're dirty and they're nasty. And if you do them, you're gross. What you're affiliated with, gross. So we have that judgment, whether we say it or not. Our face may say it, or we may say it as a person. Like, you tell me, you come to confide in me, and I tell you that's disgusting. You are a bad person. I can't be affiliated with you anymore. It's, as humans, we are here to judge. It's part of one of our many flaws as humans is we're going to judge. And it could be something we grew up with, our parents told us this, or stuff that social media told us, or kind of just depends. But we have judgment in our hearts and our heads for people who do stuff like that.
What do you think, Chris?
I would like to go back to what Gennessa said about how can drugs and alcohol be an environmental thing. Really, I think yes and no for that. Because sometimes, you know, kids, you know, they can grow up into this family who's doing good, you know, teaching them right, but then, you know, whatever little thing they do, they get kicked out for any reason, then, you know, this is the only thing that they cope with and find this as like kind of find this as like a better use for themselves. Like, they think that, oh, this can help me with, you know, my depression or bipolarness or something. And so not just, you know, being exposed to drugs and alcohol your whole entire life is not going to affect you because, you know, being tempted, it never affected me. And, you know, I still have 2 more years in high school, and I know that I'm going to still get tempted by kids, you know, telling me about this. But it's not, you know, always... It's not like always an environmental thing, because it can just be little things of you trying to find a way of escape than actually talking to someone about it.
So I feel that, you know, now that you mentioned about talking to people and, you know, seeking for help, what do you guys think are some of the challenges that people face when, you know, substance abusers or mental health issues, that when they're finding that help, you know, like we talked about being stigmatized, you know, like somebody going to you and saying like, hey, I need help, like I'm an addict. And what if somebody's gonna like, oh man, you're a crackhead, like I can't kick it with you or whatever, you know, like what are some of the challenges that you guys think that are involved with seeking for help and stuff like that?
I'll give it to you straight. Imagine having a place in Bakersfield that was so heavenly. When you go and enter through it, your body jitters and turns into unlimited serotonin releasing, and you feel like amazing pleasure and you're happy. That's what drugs are for people. So imagine somebody saying, I need to get off of something that I absolutely love. You ever had a girl or a guy or whatever that you wanted to break up with, but
You're like, yeah, I can't.
you got it bad. Like what Brother Usher said. Well, that's what drugs are. And every day when I used to work, I worked in the hood, substance abuse, counseling, facilitation. You would watch people come in there and say, this is destroying my freaking life, bro. But I love this crap. I love it more than anything. Woo! Goosebumps just thinking about hearing them say that. And that breaking my heart in so many pieces. And that, for me, from my point of view, just the addictive nature of drugs is something that can tear people and families apart. What do you think?
Oh, okay.
You were just chewing on that?
It was
It's a
chewing
trip,
on it.
right?
It was.
Yeah, because
That's right.
when you think
I
about
love it. I don't want to let it go.
Yeah.
This girl's bad for you. Who cares? That's my boo, man. Bro, she keeps leaving you for other guys. I don't care. I want her back. You know, that's the number one hardest thing about getting off, getting help, getting clean, staying clean. What do you think?
I agree wholeheartedly. As I said, my mother's still in active addiction. When we were in high school, it was like the hardest because she wasn't there. She would be up for 5 days and then sleep for 6 weeks. We would never see her. So it was just, I saw it in there already. Even though she wasn't going to say anything, she always hid it from us, but we could see it. We knew that there was something going on, something more. We couldn't put a name to it, but we knew that like something was not right. We needed like a mom, and she couldn't be that for us. I think when you were talking about tearing families apart, that's what I thought of. I thought of my mom, and I thought of like all the trauma she's been through. Like Chris said, like it's more than just a setting. You put anybody in trauma, and they're going to react, whether it's good or bad. It's still a reaction. So I think that just brought me back those memories of like my mother and my dad, my siblings, and the trauma that they grew up with, never fully coping with it, and then being an adult and continuing that cycle of trauma.
Yeah.
So do you guys feel that there isn't enough resources being given to people to how to cope with stress? So for example, like, you know, I've always said, you know, schools should teach individuals how to cope with this stress, because you'll see it in colleges. You know, midterms come around and people are stressed, and I've heard from teachers themselves say that students will do meth just to stay up to finish their writings and stuff like that. Do you guys feel that schools aren't providing, or not even just schools, but you know, just in general, do you guys feel that there isn't enough help to cope with these stresses, or you know, what's the issue? Like, why don't we not know how to cope with this stress? Who do we learn from? Our parents? Because our parents didn't learn it either. Like, who's gonna teach us how to do it?
It's a generational problem. It's like they didn't get to learn it. We can't teach. Well, we could teach them now. That doesn't mean they're gonna absorb it. It's like if they don't teach their kids, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. We're just playing the same game. So it's like we really have to pick a strong hold on like, hey, we need to teach this. We have to put it in our curriculum because this will help our future. And it just hasn't been done. We do have select teachers in the districts that are really good about being mindful. Hey, don't worry about this test. Take a minute to breathe. Even as a worker within the districts, like we have students every time, even at the podcast, it's like we talk to them. We want them to feel comfortable. We want them to know that this is not, you're not under any pressure. You need to just relax. This is for you to feel good about yourself and feel relaxed. Like self-care, and it sounds weird, should come first, because if you are not right with yourself, you're not going to be right with anybody else. So I think it's a generational hop through. Our parents didn't do it, and it's kind of up to us as a generation to kind of pick a time. Be like, okay, now we really need to implement this. This is something we really need to teach out, and know that youth can get help when they are going through traumas. Not only stress, but trauma in general is going to happen in life, and we need ways to cope other than substance abuse.
Here's the conundrum of self-care in a world that is selfish. We encourage people to get self-care, and now instead of finding a happy medium where we balance care and service, we just went all the way from service to self-care. So now there's not even a lot of people. Like, how many people do you legitimately know that specialize in stuff like that, or that you can reach out to and call tonight if you have a problem? You probably know a little bit more because you've been around, but it's not a lot of people.
Even then, you know.
It's not a lot of people that are serving right now. So I think one of the things we need are more. We need to publicize the service of mental health through school, through college, through the workplace. We need to have programs that promote mental wellness, and we need more people that legitimately want to serve. And I think that's the problem with the like the social media vibes right now. To put that into this context too, it's like everybody's out for doing what they think everybody wants to see. So some people are missing their legitimate callings of like working an addiction specialist or working as a counselor or working as even a therapist, because everybody's like wanting to be a millionaire tomorrow,
Want to be famous.
want to be famous
Yeah.
today, and it's like, oh, that's cool.
Wanna
That's
go
really what you're
viral.
on, but we need people to be in their places. And right now, in this place, it's not a lot of it, dude. It's not a lot of it. Even some of the social workers that I deal with and see, they're just not in it for the right reasons.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I've seen
I
that a
hate
lot.
to say it,
yeah.
like it's like that and being a cop and a doctor, like those three, buddy, really want to be that, because social worker, cop, doctor, stuff like that, if you're not really into it,
It's not for
you're not
everybody.
helping nobody, dude.
Yeah, like I forgot who I spoke to a while back, and they're like, it's a cool job. They're like mental or substance abuse specialists or whatever. And they're like, yeah, it's cool, but I'm mostly in it for the money, you know. They're like, I'm not really in it for helping. And then in my head, I was like, dude, like, how are you gonna help these people? Like, you have to want to help. You know, like me, for example, I want to work with youth and I want to help. Like, I'm not doing it for the money. I do want to make a good living.
Right.
But, you know, I want
You're not
to
trying to be broke.
But
Right.
I'm not going to be like, oh, if I can't be a millionaire off of this, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
Because I just genuinely want to help. We need people who genuinely want to help.
And I think that's kind of a point that you brought up just now, is like you need to be in your place, but at the same time you have to want to give back to your community, you have to want to care about the next client, that even though they're our client, you are getting paid, they shouldn't feel that through you.
Right.
They shouldn't feel like you don't care and you're just here for the money and you just are doing your job.
Yeah. That's true. Once again, it comes down to that infrastructure, that support. We don't even have an infrastructure to support budding psychologists, budding addiction specialists, budding this, budding that. When I go to these schools and talk, people tell me they want to be an influencer like 8 out of 10 times, bro. 8 out of 10 times people tell me they want to be an influencer. And then every now and then I'll get like fireman, cop,
You know,
influencer, rapper,
what's
basketball
crazy
player.
is I seen an interview with Charles Barkley. He said that when he goes to schools, he sees when it's like certain environments or certain areas, he'll see like more of them want to be basketball players, or they want to be rappers. He's like, and then when I go to another area, you know, like they want to be doctors, lawyers.
Right.
He's like, and he like he said, I like how he said in the interview that, you know, he said, to be a basketball player, you know, like the chances are limited. If you really want to play in the NBA, like when you think about it, there's only 5 players on the court, and then they have the reserves or whatever.
Right.
So you have more of a higher chance to be a lawyer, a doctor. But you know, these kids, they don't see that. It's like you said, you know, they want to be famous. They want to be millionaires. You can still be a millionaire off of being a lawyer. You can be a millionaire being a doctor. Like, you're helping people. So I feel like we need to kind of push that on them as well.
We need to offer it as a legitimized option to youth that are growing up so that we have a solid infrastructure. Look at the prison. The prison industry is ridiculously rich. It has given people the ability to make $100,000 a year as a CEO.
Yeah.
It's got full support. It's fully undergirded. It's in there. Now go to addiction and tell me what that looks like to you. People don't even know, I bet. Like if I ask you, what do you think the support for that? Huge. The pharmaceutical industry, billions.
Yeah.
But the support, so the prison industry, billions. The business built around the prison industry, the jobs, the vendors, millions. Over here, pharmaceutical, billions. The support around it.
Not there.
So that's really one of the biggest problems. We still, after all of this, we still haven't really fully taken this drug epidemic as seriously as we really are supposed to. We still haven't. We haven't put the money in it. We haven't put the time in it. We don't even have the right infrastructure built up to get people support. You either get one or two things when you go to a drug counselor, bro. You either get a guy that didn't even graduate from high school and could barely read, and you try to tell him like what you're going through, and he's just like, word, I feel you, bro.
Yeah.
Or you get this super therapist that has 6 masters and can't identify with you at all.
Yeah.
It's like we need to just build up the support a little bit better.
Growing up, I always been, because I have a lot of family members in medical club. Like they're in high school they would be in like medical, more like medical club. They would go into ROCC Tech to, you know, train to eventually have a degree in this. And it's always been inspiring from my mom too. So I always wanted to be a doctor, specifically a dermatologist. And you know, I was in medical club last year. This year I'm not taking it because I'm really busy right now. But I just remember last year, some of my friends and other people there too, you know, they were just like, oh, I'm just doing this because of the money. And it's kind of, you know, it's really heartbreaking because, like, you know, money, I think that money is the root of all evilness. Like, a lot of people just think that money is the go-getter, which, you know, I feel like everyone thinks that, but I feel like they take it to an advantage of, like, where it's like that's all they think, like that's based their life, that's what they want to do, they don't care about no one. But I find that like a different perspective because I love treating people, I love putting people before me. Like I love it, and that's why I think like doing this program and Time for Change too is just, it's honestly like a blessing to me because, you know, when we went to to the Sunset Middle School in January, it honestly just melted my heart how like helping these kids, you know, in this low income school, with, you know, the cafeteria doesn't even have like an AC, I think they said something like that. It's just like, it honestly just broke my heart. And just like teaching these kids, they really seemed engaged, and it was like, oh my gosh, like I feel like I don't know. I almost like want to cry because like it was so like amazing. I never like treated someone like that.
And those low income areas we serve, the people there are twice as likely to use freaking drugs.
Yeah.
I think it has a lot to do with how you grow up because my dad, he's a recovery specialist now, so he's got a bachelor's. He works at I don't know. He's a recovery counselor, and then knowing him from back then, he used to get really high and climb up in palm trees and just like swing in palm trees, and I was like, oh, okay. So knowing him then and knowing him now, that gave me like a pathway because I knew that if he could get from there to there, from knowing this man who would get really high and get up in palm trees to helping others with their addiction, I knew that I wanted to do something like that because I wanted to move people like he moves people. You took someone who was in a hole and you put him in another hole with somebody who understood. And so I love when I meet his clients and I'm like, and they talk and they're like, he really relates and understands.
Welcome back to Voices for KERN. We were just talking about some powerful stuff, substance abuse, what it comes with, challenges, and how we can even get it a little better. So now we're going to transition to a little thing that's, you know, closely tied to substance abuse, and that's mental health issues, you know. We see a spike in it. You know, I just read a book a little bit long ago, or not so long ago, saying that 1 in 4 people have mental health issues. You know, that's crazy. That means, you know, I'm not gonna point nothing out, but that means one of us here could have mental health issues without even knowing. So
Or 2.
Or
so or all 4.
Or all 4.
We might be the 4, you know. But you know, what is the first thing that comes to mind when we speak about mental health issues to you guys? What is the first thing that you say? All right, this is what mental health issues. You guys don't know?
I say stigma. Even if all 4 of us did, like Gennessa was jokingly saying, would any 4 of us admit it? Like right off the rip? Or would we wait for someone else to admit it?
And then like go
and then be like, me too, you know? Because it's always easier to do that.
Yeah.
But that's just a sign of the stigma, right? Of like saying something's wrong with me or feeling like something's wrong with me. I might have stuff that's not even been diagnosed. You know, like I said, I grew up in an aggressive environment, bro. I can't stress that enough. My dad was aggressive. My mom was aggressive. My grandma was aggressive. Bro, I'm talking. My sister's aggressive. My pastor was aggressive. I'm being honest right now. Like, I could go all day, but I grew up around so many aggressive people. I probably got like a little PTSD or something like that. I think that's why I go above and beyond to be like really patient and really like kind of gentle as I can be, because I just grew up in a cesspool of aggression. And man, it's tough, bro. So when I think about mental health, I think even just like maybe thinking you're good, but not knowing that maybe you do need to go talk to somebody. Like maybe you do need to go to a therapy session. Maybe you do need to reach out to a friend, because sometimes my reactions to things in life, I can see that lens of me being afraid. Yeah.
So what about you guys? What do you guys think? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you guys think about mental health?
I think of my family and I think of trauma. I feel like trauma is really what is highlighted there. So I feel like once trauma is addressed, and mental illness is a little easier to control and cope with and be okay to live with, because it's definitely like something you can live with and manage. It's not unobtainable. It's not impossible to handle it. I think it's how you deal with it and how you deal with your trauma, and if you even get it addressed.
What about you, Chris?
When I think of mental illness, I think of my mom's side. Growing up, my mom, she grew up with 3 brothers. She was the only girl, and they never had a father role model. My grandmother, she did have a husband at the time, but they never really had that affection to have their real dad in that house with them. And you know, my grandmother, she was for a while when they were little kids, you know, she was the only one taking care of them, and it was harder for the boys, because there's this, my parents tell me this too, like growing up, you know, you need that father role model for boys too, because it's like, it's important for, you know, the father to teach them like how to do this for their family, you know, the future family, how, you know, like how to kind of like lead their family as a man, you know? I mean, women can lead their family as well, as much as a man can. But I feel like it's more important for a male role model in that family. It's like a better security for that family. And that kind of triggered like a lot of depression.
Wow.
With my oldest uncle, my mom's oldest brother, and because he kind of had to like figure everything out. Since he was the oldest, he had to step it up, you know, take care of little kids, help his mom out with a lot. So that was tough, and he died early 2000s from overdose, because he was a drug addict. That's why he was gone. My mom and her younger brother, he called them, and then he was like, oh, why don't you come meet me out in LA? And so my mom and brother, you know, haven't seen their like dad in a long time. They were so excited. They drove out there that morning and found him dead.
Wow.
So yeah,
that makes me think of the relationship between mental health and drug abuse.
Yeah.
They work and play off of each other. But drug abuse, even though it makes you feel better. Like say I'm depressed and I take drugs and I feel better, I'm not better. It's almost like when you take NyQuil. Some people think NyQuil makes you feel better. And it's like, it takes away the symptoms that you're feeling, but you're still just as sick as you were before you took it. And I think that's how drugs are. If you can stay on drugs for a long enough time and check out of enough life, your mental health is going around along with it. Like they're just kind of like on that same freeway, bro, just all day long.
You know, and like, you know, from my experiences and like you know, I'm majoring in administration and justice. So, you know, I learned a lot about substance abuse and this and that. So, you know, a lot of the time substance abuse is a trigger to mental health issues. You know, people like, I have cousins that, you know, they had mental health issues, but once they started using meth or drugs, is when it really came out. Like, you know, like,
yes.
And now that's who they are. You know, that mental health, like it literally made it worse. So now, you know, like one of my cousins, you know, my aunt, she couldn't take it, and you know, she sent him all to like a home to, you know, people with mental health issues. But it's because the drugs that he was taking, like I remember as a kid, he was just like me, literally. But then after he started doing the drugs is when, you know, it really hit. So, you know, I see that, you know, those things come together. But, you know, a lot of the times people don't see that, they think, oh, it's because of drugs made him crazy. But like he already had those mental health issues. It's just that the drugs made it worse.
Do you think that the drugs can
Make it worse?
No, well,
Like trigger it?
yeah, because I went to high school with some dudes, and then they start doing math. The next thing you know, you see them in the streets,
what are
barefoot, and it's like,
bro, you were with me.
yeah, like did them like.
What
do you
was
think it was already there, or do you think like the meth?
I feel that it's already there. I mean, I don't know about you guys because I feel like it's already there. It's just that the meth just triggers it.
Oh, I can see that.
So it's like a little trigger. Like I'm not. It's like you said. That when people do a drug, they love it. They don't want to stop, and then they keep doing it. They keep doing it, and it's just gonna mess up your brain. And it's that's what drugs do.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then some people get away with just using for like years, and they still have everything the same.
So,
how does this work? I know the science on it, but how does it really work in real life?
Talking about that's like talking about how the effects of drugs. Like, what do you guys think that people still use drugs? Like, they know that it's gonna affect their mental health, or like tobacco. People are still smoking tobacco. They know it's gonna give them lung cancer. They know they can. It's one of the highest preventable deaths here in the United States. So like, why do you think that it is that people still use these drugs knowing that it's gonna harm their body, their mental health?
He touched on this earlier. The feeling, the euphoria, the feeling you get from using said drugs.
So you think that's like, for example, like you can go to the gym and do that same thing, feel that same happiness.
But
like
it takes more work, doesn't it? Or is it?
I wouldn't call it the same.
Yeah,
hitting on that stair stepper.
I mean, yeah, it's a little hard. But the thing is, though, going on that stair stepper or whatever, that your body's gonna be healthier.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna feel that same euphoria. Like, why are we choosing drugs?
The same reason that I stop by freaking Starbucks and get a freaking frappe as opposed to going and getting some Aquafina. It's that instant gratification.
So it's just that instant feeling.
It's
that
easier.
They just feel. It's like,
if I'm already
fix.
feeling down, why would I get up and go to the gym and get on the stair stepper? That's harder. Or I could just smoke.
Yeah.
So what do you think our society as a whole could do to prevent that? I'm pretty sure there's other ways that, like, for example, me, like I used to use drugs and I used to do that, but not for me. If I want to feel an instant like euphoria and I want to feel good about myself, I'll hop on and play some video games. Watch a little comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So what could we do to kind of just eliminate that? And here, this is you can feel instant gratification doing this. What is it that we can do? A lot of people, they go to church.
I think understanding that primarily, you can't really exchange the type of instant gratification you get from drugs with anything else. I think it's about the addict's brain being so committed to instant gratification at a high level. So you have to get them out of that mode of thinking in counseling. You have to get them out of that, like, you're going to go to the gym, but you're not going to feel like you did when you were smoking crack. Okay? It's just not going to be the same. Like, because their addict brain is like, what should I try? And I'll tell him, like, try to hoop. And he's like, comes back the next week, he's like, I hooped. Like, it was terrible. I didn't feel anything like heroin. It's like, it's not supposed to feel like heroin, So I think the dealing with the addict's brain. Have you ever talked to an addict, like, over the course of time? It's like you have to tell them things like they're like not lit like a little kid, but you have to explain things to them. And I think the world as it stands is just not patient and savvy enough about what mental health issues all across the board. And I don't even want to get started on Black families and the way we treat people that have mental health issues. We call them slow. We call them
Mexicans too.
Something wrong with him. Yeah. We leave him in the room. Jesus.
Yeah, like like
terrible.
In the Mexican culture, you see somebody with mental health issues, like, oh, he's crazy, like that loco. Like, like that's how he is. It's like, bro, he can get the help, and like Gennessa said, cope with it and still live with that mental health issues and still, find different ways to cope with it.
It's easy to say, but then when you see him coming, be as honest as you can. How do you feel?
I see that a lot in the workplace. I work in a big corporation, and a lot of people, even with homeless people, they feel scared. They feel the need to cross the street. I don't feel that. I don't feel scared. I'm not scared. You're a person. You're a person just like me. You're flesh and blood. If you shoot me, I'm gonna bleed. If I shoot you, you're gonna bleed. I don't feel scared. I feel like If you're screaming down the street, I'm gonna ask you, hey, you need anything? You okay? I'm gonna leave you a cup of water. If you're not responding, okay, cool. Like I don't feel the need to be afraid of you.
I agree.
So, touching about, how our society is and stuff like that, how do you guys think that our modern society plays a role in, mental health issues? Like I've seen I don't know if it's a spike, because I just think people are being more accepting of it a little bit more, But, do you guys think modern society plays a huge role in mental health? Because I'm pretty sure my dad, if I asked my dad, he didn't see it as much as he would see it now.
What do you think?
Honestly, I think that society nowadays has a major part in mental health with a lot of people, specifically social media and social platforms. You can see this beautiful model and you try to compare, because a lot of people compare themselves to people they think is better than them. Like, oh, she has an hourglass shape and I don't. And it's kind of like you feel that insecurity and then you go into that little depression. And it's like, we try to compare ourselves to other people and then we can't find that escape, because when you're in back to what Javon and Victor was talking about, mainly in Black and Hispanic cultures, it's like when you're trying to talk to your parents about it or any family, you think that, why are you thinking that you should be worried about school and not this, get off of this, and then, they, leave you without, really explaining yourself. And that can be a huge factor in today's society, especially in teenagers as well.
I think that social media also has the flip side where it's like we have those influencers who are saying, take care of your mental health. And people actually do take into consideration what they're saying. Hey, if you're feeling this way, talk to a professional, talk to help. I don't know how many times I've been scrolling on TikTok and there's an ad for getting a therapist, easy peasy. So I just feel like it has both sides. And I think comparison is one of those many human flaws, is like, we're going to do it no matter what. Even if I'm the most confident I've ever been, I'm still going to look at somebody and be like, I could be better though. I could be that. I could have more money. I could have this. It's just one of those very,
clothes, everything.
very flaws of being human.
Can I add another perspective from the opposite side of modern society as it pertains to drug use? I mean, mental health is also, it's such a buzzword now. So it's like now, I just got to be honest, I'm stuck between thinking like a clinician and also thinking like from anecdotal experience, actual experience. It's like, with my daughter, like every time I tell you to take out the trash, you got anxiety now. It's like, but then I see you 10 minutes later and you're just on the phone like, hey, Johnny.
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, what about your chores? She's like, I can't breathe. So it's like the buzzword of mental, I'm gonna keep it real. You know me, I ain't built for lying. I'm just not built for it. One of the good things is about the prevalence of the information, the fact that it's on the docket, the fact that it's on websites. But then the other side of it is like, people are taking advantage of it. Not everyone, but there are people that are taking advantage of it and diagnosing themselves.
Yeah.
Let's just say it. I can't come to work today. My PTSD. Like, okay, have you been going to get help? Have you been going to therapists? Have you been getting any medicines? Have you ever talked to anyone in your life? It's like, no, I read a book. I read an article. And I got it. And I need to be off. And it's like, what do you tell them? I'm not telling them no. But I think, once again, I just want to make this conversation even more interesting, that there are other people that I said I feel like this half the time. There are people that feel like this all the time. My dad is one of them. You tell my dad about anything mental health related, he'll be like, I had to walk from Fresno to Visalia in the snow. Got to work. Don't tell me about no mental health. I'll tell you about being broke. That's my dad. So it's like, in one sense, I feel the old school. But then in one sense, I feel the new school. I guess that's why I'm a millennial.
You know what?
I'm in the middle.
What's crazy is, I'm modern day, like I was born in the 2000s. Gen Z, so. But I still think like that, I feel that, just like Jovan said, some people do take, advantage of it. I remember watching an episode it was like a little cartoon, but it was one of the guys and he was like, oh, I have anxiety. I can't do this. I have anxiety. And then his friend's like, we all have anxiety. Like, we all get nervous. Like, just, you're not gonna, and that's what it is.
That's all I'm saying. At what point is it diagnosable?
Yeah, so that's why I feel, I feel what he's...
There's like levels of anxiety, like general, certain levels of anxiety. But I also like, I understand your daughter. I feel like if I go outside my house and we're gonna fight somebody, like I have to, even taking the trash out. Trash day is Wednesday. I have to drag it to the end of my curb, put it there. I open the door and I'm like, I feel like someone's outside. Let me close the door. Like my neighbors are out doing their own thing, and I'm like, I'll wait until nighttime. Someone's driving by. I'll wait until 2 years later. Like I'm not gonna do it. If someone's outside, I'm not gonna do it.
Ask you something. All right. So then if it's like, let's go to the mall. And go shopping, and I give you $300, and all of a sudden, pew! You're anxiety's gone.
I mean, I'm not saying
that lift with that stranger.
I'm not saying that people do not take advantage of it. They do, absolutely. But my sister, we have to teach her, like, you have to go up and pay for that.
That is true.
You have to get up there and swipe the card and make small talk. Like, it's hard for her to even do that. If it wasn't for probably our siblings, she would have never been outside because she didn't have to. So it's like, we stop the online ordering. You have to like go outside.
You have to
go outside.
With that being said, and some people fake, and some people not fake, but you know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
People take advantage, and other people really need it. How do you think people should deal with, like, should the baseline of needing mental health at least be like, you need to go talk to somebody, or you need to go try to get help and not just lean on your self-diagnosis for your whole life? Or what do you think? I'm just
Most definitely. I mean, especially if you're using it as a way of manipulation. We had this situation where somebody came into the center and was like, hey, I'm struggling with this. And then we were like, oh, we have mental health specialists on site. Do you want to go? And she was like, no. I want to sit here and talk to you and cry about it. And like, okay. It works like clockwork. If I offer and you still say no, but you don't give me like a good reason, and I know you have the team and I know you're going through it, but you don't want to talk, it's like there's obviously a flip switch. Like it's like clockwork. If I offer it to you, you automatically say no. I'm like, okay.
This kind of leads back to like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Yeah. So if they're not drinking, it's like, okay, then I can't help you.
Yeah, that's true. You know, and,
that's pretty good.
You know, talking about how all the mental health stuff. How do you guys think mental health stigma affects the way mental health is addressed in schools? You know, and you're in school. How do you think all this stigma affects the way mental health is addressed, especially in schools?
I don't know if this is all schools, but the schools I went to, we obviously had like assemblies like talking about, oh, if you're having mental health, or guest speakers come in our class about this, because they talk about this like this is a serious topic. Like we have like kids commit suicide, and it's crazy because there's this kid in my school. My high school, they offer a lot of support for kids like this, but it's like some kid a few years ago, he kind of hid that away from everyone. He would come to school just like, joyful, like everything was great for him. Wow. Till one day he took all his stuff and shot himself. Yeah. And it's crazy because he was a sophomore like me. And, I think that school does give a lot of support, but a lot of people, tend to not take that support because they're scared, or they're scared to change. They are scared for what's gonna happen next. And that goes back to like family too. Like, I had some parts where it's like, oh, I'm going through something and I want to talk to a trusted adult or a trusted friend, but I was scared that was going to lead to my family and them knowing, and then my family's going to be like, why didn't you tell us? Or why, like, you're crazy and stuff. And it's kind of like, that's why a lot of people hold it back, and it grows worse and worse.
First and foremost, I want to thank you for being vulnerable. I feel like you've done it twice now, and I didn't get to do it earlier, but you were very vulnerable, and I want to like commend you for that, because it's hard.
Yeah.
Especially when not everybody knows your story or knows parts of your story. So I want to thank you for being that. But I also agree with you. If it's hard, because like I said, human is to judge and to react on a dime. Like, I'm going to say this and do this, and my face might change, and I might say something that's just right off the top of my head. So I feel like judgment is a lot to do with getting help. Is like, if I ask for help, are they going to perceive me as different? Are they going to perceive me differently than they did before?
All right, so talking about that judgment and kind of, talking about that, how do you guys feel that, we can end that stigma, I can't say the word, but you guys know what I
I think
mean.
you are saying it.
Like how,
You just keep repeating it correctly.
yeah, but
Stigma.
stigmatization or
Stigmatism?
something like that.
You do it a good
Yeah,
job.
but
Good job.
how do you guys feel that we can end that? Like, is it by educating more people, bringing more awareness? How could
End
we?
or make a dent in?
Oh, not end it, but
Yeah.
just kind of lower it.
Mm.
Stop all that judgment. It's a human thing. We all go through things.
For me, being okay, because I was, in your position once, that young. Now, like I said, I'm in between, right? I'm looking and I see you guys and I identify still with some of your struggles, and I see my mom and them, and I'm identify with some of their ideals. I think, like the new leaders of either families, friend groups, whatever, we got to start having that dialogue. We got to start opening up these conversations. Just how natural she's talking about it, just how natural he's talking about it. Imagine if you could do that at home. Imagine if you could go to your parents and be like, yo, this is what's going on. And they're just like, okay, let's talk about it. Like, for me, I was scared. I couldn't tell my mom nothing. Did you see my mouth?
Yeah.
Nothing. Okay, love you, Mom. Nothing. So it's like, whatever I was going through, I was about to thug it out, dude. Figure it out somehow. I wasn't telling nobody nothing. And even though maybe they would be a little more understanding at times to surprise me, they had already shown me that they weren't so many times that I was like, man, I'm cool.
Yeah.
I'm cool. So
I think for the judgment part, it's like knowing that I have that, and then also being able to push that aside and say, hey, I'm open, I'm willing, let's talk, let's find you help. So yes, I'm still gonna think, oh my gosh, this and this, but putting that aside and saying, you need to go sit somewhere while I be open and honest with this person and saying, hey, like I'm here for you and let's see what we can do to get you help. Like that reaction you have to acknowledge it first and then kind of put it aside. It's an implicit bias. You're gonna react on a dime, but you also have to be able to use your mental willpower to be like, that's not what that really is.
Yeah.
thanks.
I love how you guys say that, just opening up conversations. I remember Dixie, one of the first days that I was here, she mentioned that, a lot of the times we're afraid to talk about these topics, but we have to. That's how, we become more aware and open to these type of situations. So I feel that, you guys are right. I feel a lot of families should, take, you guys, when you guys are sitting at the dinner table, talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a topic of conversation. It might get a little intense, but, you can do it,
Be transparent. Be intentionally transparent. That's why I freak people out all the time, because they're like, oh, you robbed a guy? And I'll be like, I robbed a guy once. And everyone around will just be like,
what the heck?
What? Like the DJ's like, But I live my life like that, bro. And I do it, and I don't have to, by the way. I'm at the point now where you really couldn't tell where I've been through, where I've come. You can see a little something, but you can't really see it. You can be like, this guy's a square, or you just don't know. So it's like when I lead off and tell you, we bring ourselves down a couple pegs. And then once you bring yourself down a couple pegs, because you don't know how people perceive you. You never know. There have been people looking like up to you, and then all of a sudden you just get with them and be like, yeah, I was molested. Like, just because they brought it up, or they had a friend, and I was too, and I went through that. That was really hard for me. It's like, whoa. First of all, it's such a huge culture shock that I would even say that, which is why I love living my life like that, just busting through barriers that are stupid, status quo, that shouldn't exist. Doesn't make me any less of a man because I made mistakes and all those things. Doesn't mean nothing. So I think if we all start to think a little more like that, without having as much to prove all the time, people would just flock to us and tell us stuff and trust us more and be more down to open up. But because we always want to keep such a, such an image all the time, nothing real ever gets talked about. And I'm just not for it.
Yeah, I remember like talking to you about on the radio whenever I went out there. And I told you something about, I felt that my story was kind of like a burden, the things that I went through, like, maybe it's going to affect my future, maybe I don't have a future. And then you told me, you're like, bro, like, that's what's going to open doors for you. And I feel like a lot of people don't think like that. I remember just right now, before I came here, I was in the class and I told my professor, like, yeah, I remember being in juvenile hall, and then he looked at me like you were like in juvie, and I was like, yeah. He's like, I would have never seen that, and I was like, what the heck? So saying these things, and be more open about it, I feel is, you know, it's powerful, and we need to talk about these things. So to anybody out there listening, you know, get your kids, get your grandma, your dogs, whoever you guys want to get, you know, and just talk about these issues and really like going deep into them, because we need to speak about these things and, you know, talk about it with your friends.
Dogs too.
Yeah, dogs too, bro. Shoot, if that's it. You know, if
What do you think, Sparky?
and he's gonna bark. He's gonna bark. All right, cool. You know, but it's because hey, some people that's all they have.
It's true. No, it's true. Comfort animals, it's a real thing.
So you know.
Yeah, it's a real thing.
So if that's what you need and that's what you how you cope, you know, do it.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
So you know, we're coming to the end of this beautiful podcast.
I enjoyed this.
I enjoyed it. I loved it. You know, thank you to Chris for being vulnerable, like Gennessa said. Thank you to Gennessa for being here. Shout out your podcast real quick, because you know you're a host just like us.
Oh, you got a podcast?
I do. I host Youth Voice Amplified.
Okay.
Oh,
And where can we find
never
you?
know that in life.
Instagram, Facebook, and any podcast streaming platforms.
You guys heard it. So we got a whole bunch of amazing youth that we're still gonna be bringing on. You know, this is just the beginning, guys. What time is it?
It's time for change.
Let's get it.